I used to believe that loyalty was something you could build quietly, brick, by showing up, by paying bills on time, by loving without keeping score. I believed that if I carried enough weight, no one would dare step on my back. I was wrong. That afternoon began like any other. My office smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink, the kind of ordinary calm that comes from a life built on discipline. I had just finished reviewing quarterly projections when my phone vibrated on the desk. I almost ignored it. Money alerts were background noise in my world: subscriptions, travel bookings, routine expenses. But something made me look. $14,870, luxury footwear boutique. I stared at the number, waiting for recognition to arrive. It didn't. I hadn't been shopping. I hadn't even been outside the office all day. My stomach tightened, not with anger yet, but with confusion. I opened the transaction details, expecting fraud, maybe a cloned card. The location stopped me cold. A designer mall across town. Exclusive. Intimate. The kind of place where sales associates remember your name and your shoe size. Then I saw the authorized user. My mother-in-law. I felt a strange heat creep up my neck, not rage, not pain, just disbelief. She never shopped alone. She liked witnesses. Approval. An audience. I hesitated before calling the boutique, already sensing that I wasn't ready for the truth but knowing I couldn't pretend ignorance either. The sales associate answered cheerfully. Yes, she was here earlier, she said. Such a lovely woman. I asked, carefully, who the purchase was for. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. Oh, she was with a younger lady. Very stylish. They said the shoes were for your husband's girlfriend. She wanted something elegant but bold. Girlfriend. The word landed without sound, like snow burying a grave. I thanked her and ended the call, my hands unnervingly steady. Somewhere deep inside me, something fragile cracked, but instead of breaking apart, it hardened. I sat back in my chair, staring at the city skyline through glass I'd paid for, realizing that betrayal doesn't always come wrapped in cruelty. Sometimes it arrives smiling, holding a shoebox. While I worked late nights, while I postponed vacations, while I told myself love meant patience, my money was being used to dress another woman, approved, assisted, celebrated by my own family. Not hidden. Not ashamed. Casual. Confident. As if I were already gone. Memories rushed and uninvited. My mother-in-law praising my generosity at dinners. My husband brushing off questions about expenses. The way I was thanked less and less as my contributions became expected. I finally understood the role I had been playing. Not wife. Not partner. Provider. And providers, apparently, weren't owed loyalty, only silence. I didn't cry. That surprised me most. I simply closed my laptop and whispered a truth I had avoided for years. They don't love me. They love what I fund. That realization hurt, but it also freed me. Because the moment you see how you're being used is the moment you stop being usable. And as I stood up, collecting my coat, one thought echoed with calm certainty. They believed my money was permanent. They had no idea their entire world rested on a card that could disappear with a single decision. And I was done being the woman who paid for her own betrayal. People assume power announces itself loudly. They imagine dominance in raised voices, firm handshakes, and public credit. My power never looked like that. Mine was quiet, buried beneath compromise, mistaken for kindness. I built my life before I built my marriage. Long before my husband spoke about dreams, I had already learned how to turn ideas into income. I worked through nights that bled into mornings, chasing contracts, proving myself in rooms that weren't designed to welcome women like me. When success finally arrived, it didn't feel glamorous. It felt heavy. Responsibility always does. When I married him, I believed love meant sharing that weight. At first, it was subtle. I paid the down payment on the penthouse because his credit wasn't ready yet. I leased the cars because it made sense tax-wise. I covered vacations because my income was flexible. Every justification sounded reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a pattern I was too in love to question. My mother-in-law admired our lifestyle openly. She called it family success, as if wealth were communal once a ring was exchanged. She praised my work at dinner parties, but only in ways that softened it, calling me lucky, ambitious, fortunate to have opportunities. Never powerful. Never the source. Slowly, I stopped being introduced as a businesswoman. I became his wife. The one who handled details. The one who made things easier. And I let it happen. I told myself I didn't need credit. I told myself security mattered more than acknowledgement. I told myself that if I gave enough, I'd be protected by loyalty. Instead, I became invisible. The penthouse was registered under a family trust one funded. The cars were leased through my company. The black card, oh, that sacred symbol of status, was mine alone, issued based on my assets, my income, my risk profile. Yet I watched as others carried it with entitlement, flashing it like proof of importance they hadn't earned. I realized then how dangerous comfort can be. They lived inside my success long enough to forget it wasn't theirs. My husband spoke about our money when spending it and my stress when problems arose. He delegated finances to me with relief, not respect. My mother-in-law planned shopping trips without asking, assuming access meant permission. And somewhere between board meetings and anniversaries, I stopped asking myself a simple question. What do I get in return? Love? Or convenience? Loyalty? Or dependence? The answer revealed itself in a shoe store, in a receipt, in the casual way my absence had already been rehearsed. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were confident they didn't need me anymore. That illusion hurt more than the affair itself. But pain has a way of sharpening vision. That night, I pulled every document, every account, every contract I had ever signed. I followed the money back to its origin, and every road led to me. Not them. Me. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. I wasn't lucky. I wasn't supported. I wasn't carried. I was the foundation. And foundations don't beg to be respected. They decide what stands, and what collapses. By the time the sun rose, I understood something they never would until it was too late. Everything they called their life was only borrowed. And I was ready to take it back. I always thought revenge would feel dramatic, heart-racing, hands-shaking, a storm of words finally released. Instead, it arrived as calm. So complete it almost scared me. I didn't confront anyone. Not my husband, who slept peacefully in the penthouse that night. Not my mother-in-law, who would wake up already planning her next indulgence. Not the woman wearing shoes bought with my silence. I knew confrontation would give them something they didn't deserve, my emotion. I had already given them my trust, my money, my time. They would not have my dignity too. I spent the night alone in my office, the city glowing beyond the glass like a quiet accomplice. I brewed coffee I didn't drink. I opened folders I hadn't looked at in years. There is something sobering about paperwork when emotions fade, numbers don't lie, and signatures never forget. Every asset led back to me. The black card was tied to my personal credit profile, not marital funds. The penthouse utilities were billed through my company. The vehicles, insured and leased under my name, relied on monthly approvals only I could grant. They had access. They did not have ownership. That distinction felt like oxygen filling my lungs for the first time. At 6:47 a.m., as dawn softened the skyline, I made the call. American Express, how may I assist you? My voice didn't shake. I'd like to cancel my black card, I said. The agent hesitated, surprised. People don't cancel symbols. Yes. Immediately, I added. No replacement. There was a pause. A few confirmations. A polite reminder of benefits I would lose. I smiled. You can proceed. One swipe. That was all. No shouting. No tears. No witnesses. Just a quiet decision restoring balance. Next came the emails. Account access revoked. Spending limits reduced to 0. Auto payments cancelled. I didn't empty accounts in anger, I sealed them with precision. I wasn't destroying anything. I was simply closing doors that had never belonged to them. By the time the city fully woke, the illusion was already unraveling. I imagined it like a domino effect they couldn't see yet. A declined transaction here. A confused glance there. A laugh that would freeze midair when the card failed to slide. And I felt nothing. No triumph. No guilt. Only relief. People think revenge requires cruelty. They're wrong. The most effective consequences are administrative. Silent. Irreversible. At noon, my phone buzzed. One missed call. Then another. Then 5. I didn't answer. Let confusion teach them what gratitude never did. For years, I had been the safety net they jumped without checking. Now the ground was gone, and they were learning mid-fall. When I finally stood up to leave the office, I looked at my reflection in the darkened glass. I looked older. Stronger. Sharper. This wasn't anger driving me. It was self-respect. I wasn't taking revenge. I was correcting a mistake. I had mistaken access for love. Silence for loyalty. Usefulness for belonging. And with one calm swipe, I reclaimed something far more valuable than money. I reclaimed myself. They would soon realize what I already knew. When the woman who funds your world stops paying, the collapse doesn't come with noise. It comes with silence. And silence is merciless. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It never does. It arrived in fragments, small humiliations stitched together into a truth they could no longer ignore. The first crack appeared at breakfast. My husband tried to pay for coffee with a casual confidence that had always come naturally to him. The card declined. He laughed it off, joking about technology. The second attempt failed too. By the third, the barista's smile thinned, and something uncomfortable crept into his eyes. Embarrassment. By noon, my phone was vibrating relentlessly. Messages piled up, confused, irritated, demanding. I read none of them. I had already said everything that mattered with silence. The mistress felt it next. Luxury has a way of vanishing the moment it stops being funded. Her boutique stopped recognizing her. Appointments were quietly rescheduled. Doors that once opened eagerly now required deposits, verifications, explanations she didn't have. She disappeared as quickly as she arrived. Love built on access always does. My mother-in-law called that afternoon, her voice trembling between outrage and disbelief. She spoke about family, about overreacting, about how humiliating it was for her to be denied in public. Not once did she ask why. Not once did she apologize. She only asked when things would go back to normal. That's when I knew there was nothing left to save. When I finally returned to the penthouse, it felt like a museum of someone else's life. My husband was waiting, pacing like a man who had lost his footing. He demanded explanations, then offered apologies when anger failed. He blamed stress. He blamed temptation. He blamed me for being distant. I listened quietly. Then I told him the truth. I didn't take anything from you, I said. I stopped giving. The words hit harder than any accusation. He looked around, at the art, the view, the polished surfaces, and finally understood what I had known for years. None of it was his. Within weeks, the penthouse was gone. The cars followed. The lifestyle dissolved under scrutiny it had never survived before. People who once surrounded them vanished without farewell. Status is loyal only to money. I moved out without ceremony. No dramatic exit. now slammed doors. I took only what belonged to me: documents, clothes, peace. I chose a smaller place filled with light and quiet. I chose a life where nothing needed explaining. For the first time in years, I slept without tension in my jaw. I started spending my money on things that nourished me. Time. Health. Freedom. I stopped funding illusions and started building truth. They tried to paint me as cold, vindictive, calculating. I let them. Women who stop being useful are always labeled cruel. But I wasn't cruel. I was awake. Betrayal didn't break me, it introduced me to myself. To the woman who had built everything and asked for nothing. To the woman who finally understood that love without respect is just another transaction. I didn't scream when they betrayed me. I didn't beg when they panicked. I didn't warn them before the fall. I simply walked away with my dignity intact. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Because while their world collapsed without me, mine finally began.